I just want to draw something and pretty much just talk about my process while I'm drawing. This is the reference I will draw, and yeah, hopefully it goes well, and hopefully I will be able to talk about some stuff that I'm actually doing. Okay, the first thing I'm doing when looking at the reference is to analyze the shapes. So actually, the overall shape of this is kind of like a teardrop shape, but at least in my opinion, it's very difficult to actually draw something around like this. I like to break things down on more straight lines. So instead of having this teardrop shape, I might think of this as a polygon like this and then round things out later on. But yeah, that's the first thing. And then after that, when I capture the silhouette, I can work on the details inside that silhouette because these areas are really easy to cut out. So we are just starting to look at the negative space of things. For the beginning, only the ones that are affecting the silhouette. And once we get those, then we can look at the interior details. So I'm just going to mark these out. Okay, with all of this out of the way, I'm going to take this, shrink this down, put this here as a small reminder of what we are going to pay attention to, and then bring back up the opacity. First thing I'm gonna do is actually identifying the extreme point. This point right there is really important, as well as this angle that goes up, this one here, and this one that goes down. And then I might actually just do the idea of having this teardrop shape being drawn out without seeing this as an entire polygon. I am not aiming for perfection, just something that looks somewhat like this. It takes a lot of pressure away and lets you focus on things that are fun. So I'm marking out this, and the bottom goes straight again, goes up, and there's a bunch of bumpy business happening there and at the top, but I don't think I want to worry about that right now. Maybe a bit. Maybe I can worry about that a bit. Pick up on the hook on the right side, and then there's more bumpy stuff happening in this area, goes around, comes back in, and then it's going to the bottom where it's almost flush with the table. I think this part is really important to get good. So let's talk about curves real quick. This is one curve, obviously, but there's a certain philosophy to curves. There are even distributed curves, like this, where the apex is in the center, and there are accelerated curves, where the apex is not in the center. These sort of curves here, they tend to be more static, which is okay if you want to go for that, but in most cases, I would think it's better to go for something like this. But in this specific reference, as you can see, it even has an accelerated curve to begin with. And these accelerated curves are easier to construct if you see them as two straights. One straight there, another there, and then you round them out after the fact. Don't put the apex right in the center. Put this off to the center about there. One straight line there, one straight line there, curve it out. This almost goes straight to that point. There's a line like this happening there. So I am just going to follow that. And they are meeting about the center. So I'm just gonna do that. Then there's a bunch of funky stuff happening here. I am not going to worry about that too much. And then we can see the underside of a ribbon there. And that connects into this funky stuff. With this, I think we almost have like the most difficult part figured out. Now I'm starting to look at the internal shapes. I don't think it's quite right for me to tackle this yet, but this shape right here is in a spot that I think is very prominent. I'm drawing it in somewhere like here. And there's more negative shape business happening in this area. I'm trying to capture this to the best of my ability. And then there's some tendrils or things curving in over here, like that. It's like almost like sheet metal that curls in on itself. So all the things that we see in here are going to be in shadow. The lighting is pretty much only hitting a bottom part here and this top part there. And for that, I am going to try to define these pretty early, because when doing some hatching in a bit, I think having these spots established makes the entire process a lot easier. There's just like this swirly bit happening right there. It's almost like a sphere sitting here, so I'm just going to draw that in. And I mean, there's a bunch of funky stuff happening in this area as well, where the metal is layering over itself. I am going to pretty much ignore that for now, because I don't think it is too relevant. It's just a bunch of negative shapes that are happening in these areas. But yeah, as you can see, I am not really too worried about capturing the reference one-to-one And there's a hook right there. Going back here. And with this, I am pretty much done with my sketch. I'm just going to select that. I think the reference is a bit higher, so I have no shame about stretching and deforming some pieces of this. So I'm just going to do that. And now I am taking an eraser, make it really big, and just lighten everything up again. Because now the next step is to, well, put in the detail and do some shading on top of this. At this point, I'm going to start thinking about where the light is coming from. I'm just going to pretend there's a light source right at the top, lining down, so every plane that's facing up is going to be in light, every plane that's facing down is going to be in shadow. I don't always do it like this. A lot of the time, I don't really consider the light source at all and do all my separation of values with the local values and hatch them in a nice way and then do lighting in the painting if I get to a painting. But with this, since this is only one material, I think considering the lighting in this step will make the end result way more pleasant to look at. So this one right here, I think I see a line here. So this is facing up and all of this stuff down here would be facing down. So I'm just going to draw that in. I could use a gray tone to make this part properly dark, but I really like the hatching look, so I'm just going to hatch some values into here, just like that. And this is facing up, so no hatching here. I can even like erase some of the stuff out. All of this is in shadow, so I am going to draw that in shadow. Also, the sketch is not final. I'm still manipulating the silhouette that I'm seeing in the reference to make things more accurate to it. Let me quickly talk about the hatching direction. I like to hatch into the direction of the surface. So if you think about a surface like this that's curved in this way, my usual instinct would be to hatch it like this. Same with a cylinder. Actually, maybe not. If you have a cylinder, there's an argument where you don't hatch it like this, but like this. Both are valid, but I think for this example here, I'm just going to hatch according to the surface. For this piece, let me draw this in. For this piece right here, it's a convex shape. So if I was to draw this from a side, it would be something like this maybe. So this goes out and then it's like that. So the shapes are like this, curves in the most, and then at this point it goes the other direction. So that's what I'm going to do for that shape right here. While it is good to think about these things about direction and shading and hatching, you don't really need to stick to it too much. At the end of the day, it's still a lot of taste, I'd say, the way you want to shade things or, well, not want to shade things. Now I'm going to put in some AO because this metal part up here seems to be really close to that metal part below. So in this case, I will draw some very thick contour shadow on it. Not contour shadow, like some cast shadow. And then this piece is in the light again, but the bottom part we see right here, that is being cast in shadow. So I will put in shadow. Everything in the interior that we see here is also in shadow. I don't know how accurate this is, but I kind of want to continue this spiral shape, so I will pick that up in my hatching. Okay, now this part. All of this is in shadow. The only thing that's not in shadow again is this front part, but even that is, I think the bottom is getting like bumpy and rough again. Part of this is going into shadow. Actually, let me do this part here, because this is clearly in shadow. This is facing down, so I will hatch that in, but this thing here is in light, and then the upper part of this metal structure should be casting a shadow on it, like this. In this area there's a bunch of nonsense happening that I can't really see too good, so I will just pretend this is all part of this bigger arching structure that goes in a circle like this. Because that's what I'm gonna do with hatching. I'm going to hatch this like it's going in a circle around. And this, and there, and there. And for these parts, yeah, I think I'm going to follow this idea of just going around in a spiral. But before that, I think there's a bunch of overlapping happening in this area right here. I think I see like a metal part in this shape here that's then merging into this outer shape and going around like that, and then there's another shape there, and then this goes in like this. Okay, now I just need to follow this plan of hatching this in a kind of circular fashion. Also, usually I would really rotate my canvas a lot, but I think it's a bit annoying to watch. So I'm trying my best to keep the camera in place have it steady, so it's easy on the eyes. If you are drawing with me, drawing along, please feel free to rotate the canvas. If it makes your life easier, by all means do it. But for me, that's not an option right now, so I won't. This middle part that's right there, it's in shadow itself, but it's also creating some AO, so I will just draw that in. I think I will also add a bit of AO at the bottom of this. This is where I have to think a bit more of the bigger statement that I want to do, and what parts I should be pushing out and what parts I should be pushing back. For me, the focal point of this entire piece is around this area right here. So I'm adding artificial contrast with line weight and AO in this area to make the attention go there. That way I can do a bit of less work in the other parts of the painting. Drawing. This is very much a drawing. I'm getting a bit of wobbly lines at the bottom, and then this goes like that. And this part right here is in the light, and this part beneath this is in the shadow because the part at the top is casting a shadow on that. I think this entire area down here is like quite bumpy shadows. So I will try my best to still follow the overall idea that I want to have this sort of hatching going in circles around it, while still respecting the bumpy geometry that I'm dealing with. And at this point, yes, these things there also fall into shadow. And there's some light at the edge, but I think realistically speaking, it should be more coherent if I just block all of these out, like this. I'm still not quite happy with the read I'm getting on this area right here. Like, this piece seems to be sticking out a bit too much, so maybe there's something I can do to push it a bit further back. Yeah, I think I'm having it catch too much light on the side, and I'm not really following the hatching pattern on the spiral here anymore. So I think I should do that like this. I should be trying to keep this separate from the main shape, but still be different enough for it to pop out. Now I'm giving the sword a bit of love to have a clearly defined outline. You would be surprised on what a clearly defined outline can do for your work. It will make everything seem a bit more finished than it actually is. Just spending a bit of time on that, I think, is very much worth it. There's a bit more overlapping happening inside the hull, so I'm gonna try to integrate some AO things. Right now I'm just working a bit on the line weight to make sure everything is neat and in order. The part that I don't like right now is this back part here. It makes it seem like it is not quite part of the structure, as well as the silhouette should roughen that all a bit up. Okay, with this I have very clearly defined my shadows and my lights. I still think though that I can put a bit of detail inside the lights, just giving it a bit of shape, like this. Okay, last step, I'm going to create a layer beneath this one, just to fill in some light values, like a gray wash, to make it pop out from the background a bit more. Maybe I will change my mind and make it a bit lighter, but I think it's going to help the readability of what is actually a surface that is facing the light to what is a silhouette in this abstract shape. This is pretty much the silhouette. Though it might be a bit too dark, I just want to have some indication of it being a different value from the background without being too noticeable. Like this. Yeah, I think this is quite nice. So if I turn off the line work, you can still clearly see there's something happening, but it's not taking away from the line work. Yeah, I mean, this is pretty much my process on how to draw something. Anyways, that's all. So, bye!